But first...
There is ample scientific evidence from leading scientists the world over to show that the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food is no less painful to animals than any of the other legal methods used in the United Kingdom today.
That's Shimon Cohen. He's the voice of kosher slaughter in the UK, and he's told me Denmark has insulted millions around the world by banning halal and kosher meat. He argues kosher slaughter is painless and humane and should never be banned across the 3 counties. Halal and kosher meat is widely available across beds, hearts and bucks, but in Denmark, politicians argue animal rights are more important than religion, and so it's been taken off the shelves. So let's have a look at the law in this country. Well, European regulations require animals across the UK, including here in the 3 counties, to be stunned before they're slaughtered. But they grant exemptions on religious grounds. Under the Muslim halal and Jewish kosher systems, animals blessed with a prayer and then are conscious as their esophagus, or in simple terms, their throat, is cut with a knife. Mohammed sells halal meat in Luton.
About cruelty to animals, I'd say we got no choice, but we have to eat animals for our food. So to stun an animal is much worse than killing it by the knife, which is a sharp blade. It's much easier for the animal, less painful.
Well, the British Veterinary Association disagree. Their official position is that halal and kosher slaughter does cause more pain than stunning.
There are at least 3 welfare risks. One is the delay to unconsciousness with the ritual slaughter, and because of that delay it allows pain to be felt, and there is scientific evidence to support that. And aside from the pain, which was going to be my third point, is that animals slaughtered in this way also aspirate some of their own blood, and we know that that happens to a high percentage. So if you can imagine what it's like perhaps to have some water go down the wrong way, if you like. There are 2 parts of the respiratory tract which are very sensitive to that, the glottis and carina, which is where the trachea enters the lungs.
Well, when it's described like that, ritual slaughter sounds absolutely awful. Sean Wensley there from the BVA. We'll hear from their president very shortly, and I want to hear from you as well. Wherever you shop and wherever you eat across beds, hearts and bucks, there's a chance you'll eat meat that's had its throat cut without the animal being stunned. So this morning I want to hear your views. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK?
Have your say on today's big phone-in.
Call 08459 455 555.
That's 08459 455 555.
The JVS Show.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
So here's how you can get in touch. You can give me a call on 08459 455 555. You can text me with your view, 81333. Start your text with 3CR. Texts are charged at standard network rate. Email jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. You'll find me on Twitter as well if you want to tweet me, twitter.com/JVS Show. So yesterday I spoke to Shimon Cohen. He speaks on behalf of the kosher food industry in the UK. I began by asking him what kosher food actually is.
Kosher meat is the product of shechita. Shechita is the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food.
Right. And in what way does that differ from the standard meat production and slaughter that we have in this country?
Well, the standard meat production, animals undergo a mechanical stunning process prior to the slaughter methods. These stunning processes include being shot with a captive bolt into the brain to crack the skull prior to the animal actually being slaughtered. Most pigs in this country are gassed, rendered insensible by being suffocated by gas. Most chickens in this country are rendered insensible by being held upside down into a bath of water through which there is an electric current. Now, the Jewish community can't entertain any of those methods. Many of them do inflict unnecessary pain on animals, and therefore we have a method of rendering animals insensible to pain without mechanical stunning. Our shechita method incorporates an effective and irreversible stun. It's a humane method and results in the immediate and irreversible cessation of consciousness.
So what does it involve?
It really involves a rapid, uninterrupted severance of all the vital major organs and vessels at the neck of the animal, this with a very sharp blade. This produces an instant drop in blood pressure in the brain, rendering the animal immediately unconscious.
So, in effect, you're talking about slitting the animal's throat, when they are not stunned before that actually occurs?
Well, it's important to understand that, first of all animals in this country have their throats slit prior to dying. That's legal whether you're Jewish, Muslim, or anybody. There is no other way of legally slaughtering an animal for food without doing that. The difference is not the method of slaughter. The difference is that many animals in the conventional world are mechanically stunned with all of those methods, gassing, electrocuting, shooting, or other methods.
So they're brain dead?
They are brain dead.
Yeah.
Now, our method does that. It incorporates an effective and irreversible stun.
But not instantly?
Oh, yes, it does, indeed. It does instantly, because what it does is it draws the blade across the brain, the blood drops out of the brain fast, instantly, rendering the animal unconscious.
But the British Veterinary Association has said that a large number of animals that are killed in this way will inhale their own blood, which makes them feel as if they're drowning before they die. I mean, that doesn't sound a very pleasant way of an animal meeting its maker.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely, it doesn't. And the language chosen by the British Veterinary Association is simply chosen to inflame. It's ill-informed. It is not motivated. It is motivated by other concerns. There is ample scientific evidence from leading scientists the world over to show that the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food is no less painful to animals than any of the other legal methods used in the United Kingdom today.
But is it exactly the same as halal?
There are differences between the Jewish method and the
physical differences.
Physical differences, yes. There are differences in the time it takes to be trained to be a slaughterman. There are many differences. I have to focus only on the Jewish method, not representing the Muslim communities.
The thing is, though, Shimon, if you kind of put yourself in the animal's kind of position, not a very nice position to be in. Mm-hmm. But if any of us were given the chance of either having our throat slit with a very sharp knife, but being conscious at the moment that it occurs, or being instantly shot with something through the head so that we are in effect brain dead, we don't know anything about it when the slitting of the throat occurs, then most of us, I'm sure, would opt to be brain dead before somebody sliced our throat. Why is it any different with an animal?
Well, first of all, the method that you're suggesting there, being shot in the skull, if I were to whack you over the head with a hammer, it would hurt you, and then you would fall unconscious. So there is no evidence to show that shooting the animal and cracking its brain, it does so painlessly. It will hurt the animal will bellow, and then it will fall unconscious. We don't do that. We think it's cruel. That's the first thing. The second thing is, this really isn't what people feel. It can't be down to what people feel, because if you were to witness open heart surgery on the TV, you would think that is bloody, awful, and painful, and you'd call for a ban because it's absolutely barbaric what those people are doing. Uninformed people can't make judgments just by looking at things. Watching an animal die is horrible. In whichever way you slaughter the animal, all those methods are horrible. It's not about what it looks like. It's about, is there sufficient scientific evidence to show that animals suffer pain? With the shechita method, there is no conclusive scientific evidence to show that those animals suffer pain. We believe that they are immediately rendered unconscious, and they are immediately rendered insensible to pain, because we believe, with significant scientific evidence, that the shechita method incorporates an effective and irreversible stun.
But I presume the animal doesn't make a noise because it's had its throat.
Its brain is dead. Instantly, brain is dead.
But how can its brain be dead? Because surely it must take at least 5 seconds for the blood to run out of its brain.
Far less than that. The blood doesn't run out of the brain. This is like tipping a bucket of water upside down. It's not gently spilling it. The brain, the blood pressure between neck and brain is so high that when you sever the carotid arteries and jugular veins with one action, the blood drops out of the brain. It's split second before it falls unconscious.
The thing is, you're obviously talking about this from a religious perspective, but going back to the British Veterinary Association, I mean, they are purely interested in the welfare of animals, aren't they? Now,
clearly not, actually, if I may interrupt,
no?
Because the European Food Standards Agency did a visit to the United Kingdom very recently, and it showed that the mechanical stunning methods of animals so approved by the British Veterinary Association, 4 out of 11 showed signs of life after the stunning. The stunning fails 4 out of 11 times. The failure rate, they said, for the captive bolt shot is over 6%, and that can be the equivalent of between 3 and 9 million cows, depending on the type of stunning. So I would think that if the British Veterinary Association was so concerned about animal welfare, they might actually address those issues rather than focus bizarrely, on 20,000 cows that are slaughtered by the Jewish community for food in the United Kingdom.
Presumably, then, you feel Denmark has got it completely wrong, where they've banned halal and kosher slaughter, because, as their ministers have argued, animal rights are more important than religion.
Yes, that's exactly what I read. And the Minister of Agriculture believes that the rights of animals come before the rights of humans. Now, of course, religious freedoms cannot be unrestricted. But to deny Jewish and Muslim communities their rights with no supporting conclusive evidence shows something is wrong in Denmark. But I would like to believe that the Minister of Agriculture in Denmark is motivated only by his concern for animal welfare.
Ultimately, though, I mean, a piece of meat is a piece of meat is a piece of meat. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, would I, between a kosher chicken breast and a non-kosher chicken breast, or even a halal chicken breast. It all tastes like chicken.
Yes.
It's purely about the method of execution for that animal.
Yes.
So if it just comes down to us all eating the same, does it really matter if you, for example, were to eat a piece of chicken that was non-kosher?
Well, yes, it matters very much, because I have a deep religious faith governed by a significant body of Jewish law that says that I can't do that. The only way in which Jews can eat meat is if it is to be slaughtered in the Jewish religious method.
And explain why that is so important to you.
Because Jewish faith is governed by religious law. We believe the Bible was given to Moses by God. We believe that those laws are divine, and that our entire code for 3,500 years or more is based on the Torah, which is the body of Jewish law.
But as with any religion, if you go back far enough, you know that, for example, these texts were written before we had the ability to stun an animal, and perhaps things would have been different.
Well, things may well have been different then, but the point that I'm making here is that today, in the 21st century, let's not talk about thousands of years ago, in the 21st century, there is no conclusive scientific evidence to show that the way in which we slaughter our animals for food is any less humane than any of the other methods. There is, in fact, a significant body of science that shows that our method is more humane.
There's Shimon Cohen, who speaks for the kosher food industry in the UK. Very interesting. And I don't know if you feel the way that I felt after I'd spoken to Shimon, but I almost felt as if some of the previous opinions I may have held were kind of deflated. Is that how you feel, having listened to that? Or perhaps you are still very much against halal and kosher meat production, and you don't like the way that the animals are killed. Pick up that phone, come on and have your say. 08459 455 555. Let's get some reaction to what Shimon was saying from Robin Hargreaves, who's the president of the British Veterinary Association. Good morning to you, Robin.
Good morning.
So, Shimon Cohen said that you, the British Veterinary Association, clearly don't have the animals' welfare at the forefront. Do you agree with that?
No, clearly not. And I wonder what he thinks we do have at the forefront of our minds. What I would like to correct, if I may, is at the beginning you said that the BVA has a position to call for the banning of Sakita and halal slaughter. We don't mention religion at all. We have a position where we want the banning of slaughter without stunning.
Right, but of course that is a fundamental part of the kosher and the halal meat production. You can't have kosher or halal meat if the animal hasn't been stunned, I understand.
That's probably true more with the Jewish community. I think in the Islamic community there are differences of opinion. But we treat this as an animal welfare issue. We don't. I mean, I don't want to get involved in the religious side of things if I can avoid it. It's something that we, as a scientific body, we try and look at this from a scientific perspective. There's a couple of things I'd have to say that was mentioned in that interview, in that inferring that there was some kind of stun involved in this process, this non-stun slaughter process. There is some kind of stun. There is no stun. The animal is completely conscious and its throat is cut. And the suggestion that it's insensible instantaneously is patently nonsense. I mean, you know that and I know that. And
hang on. I don't know that because I haven't been in an abattoir. I've not been in a slaughterhouse. I've not seen it, so I don't know.
Well, the evidence that we've got with cattle is that it can be anything from a matter of seconds to up to 2 minutes before you could measurable pain sensations in the brain disappear, and that's been established. And what rather surprises me is that, this has been established. It is the law in the whole of the EU. The law is that animals have to be stunned before slaughter, and that's because greater minds than mine have considered this many times and have established that stunning prior to slaughter is the appropriate way to kill animals.
But let me present you with the example that Shimon gave me. He said if he was to hit me over the head with a hammer, then it would really hurt until I fell unconscious, and the chances are I would feel a tremendous sense of pain as the hammer struck me over the head before I then lost my consciousness. That's what we do when we stun animals, isn't it? We fire a bolt through their brain.
Yes, it's quite different to being hit over the head with a hammer. A captive bolt to the brain hits the brain in a millisecond, and the animal is rendered unconscious when that happens. I mean, it is instantaneous. It's as instantaneous as it can be. What you initially said was you would prefer to be shot through the head. Well, it's not a bullet, but a captive bolt is not like being hit on the head with a hammer. It hurts because the blow does not render you unconscious. If it rendered you unconscious as soon as it hit you, it wouldn't hurt.
And you say that it absolutely does render the animal unconscious instantaneously, because the other thing Shimon talked about was the fact that the animal will bellow, as he described it. So that suggests to me that the animal lets out an almighty cry of pain as the stun gun goes into it.
No, that's not true. I mean, if an animal may make a noise when it's unconscious, so it's not something that you could judge, but it certainly won't feel anything when that bolt goes through the front of its skull. That's the whole purpose of it. We have accepted across the whole of Europe that this is a good way of rendering an animal unconscious. And he also said that there are signs of life after stunning. Well, yes, there are. The animal is meant to be unconscious, not dead. And so that's what we aim to do, is to render the animal unconscious, insensible to pain. I mean, there's no other reason why we would want to do this.
The fact is that listening to the way that Shimon talked about it, though, it sounded as if it was so simple. He said that the slaughterman is very well trained, he has a very sharp knife, and literally he knows what he's doing, so that the blood pressure loss to the brain is so immense with that one swipe to the throat that the animal loses its consciousness straight away. Are you saying that that's not true?
Yes, absolutely. It isn't true. It will take a variable amount of time, and it takes a variable amount of time for different species, but it will be a variable amount of time, and during that time, then the animal is in a position where it can suffer, and that cannot be humane.
Have you seen that, though? Have you been into a halal or a kosher slaughterhouse?
I haven't been in a halal or kosher slaughterhouse. We've tried to be invited in, and we weren't able to get in. But I think neither have most of the members of the public. But it doesn't preclude you looking at the evidence and drawing your own conclusions.
But if we haven't seen it, how can we possibly say that it's not true? I mean, yes, you're right.
Because studies have been carried out to investigate this.
Well, so it's been trialled.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, the evidence that we have is that measures of brain activity have been taken when animals have had their throats cut, and we've been able to measure how long it takes before they're insensible to pain, and it varies, but there is a period of time. And if you stun an animal, there is no period of time. And also, when that animal is sensitive to pain, if it is then stunned after its throat has been cut, the measurements of pain sensation disappear instantly. So the stunning is the humane method because it stops the sensation of pain instantly, and cutting the throat simply doesn't do that. Now, people may say that, but it doesn't make it true.
So anybody that tries to defend the kosher or the halal method of slaughter and says that it is not cruel to the animal, they're lying.
Well, many people have been told this, and they've been misinformed. It isn't true. Repeating something that you've been told doesn't necessarily make it a lie. You've been told by somebody who you have faith in that it's true. You may well believe it, but the evidence suggests otherwise.
Do you feel, though, that halal and kosher meat production and the slaughter without stunning, is that cruel?
Yes, I do.
Right. Okay.
I do. And I think that so does a great many other people, and the evidence supports it.
So would you like to see it banned in this country in the way that they have done in Denmark?
What I would like to see is that we could persuade people that in this day and age it we can move on into more humane methods that are now available. I'd prefer that everybody could come to agreement that this was no longer an appropriate way to kill animals. If that's not possible, then a ban may well be the only way that we can stop this practice. I would prefer everybody to be of one mind, to be honest.
But as you've heard from Shimon, I mean, he says that the Danish politicians, they have offended millions of people around the world with this. There's certainly in no way he is speaking on behalf of the Jewish community. He says that many people are deeply offended by this. They're certainly not understanding of the decision.
I don't think that the Danish politicians have any control over who they offend or who they don't offend. They make decisions on the basis of evidence, and they've made a welfare decision in this case to opt for a more humane method. And there are people who don't like it. What I would say is, we have a choice about what we eat, but our animals have no choice about the way they are treated under our care. And I would say that we would put animal welfare above other considerations.
Okay, Robin, thank you very much. Robin Hargreaves, who's president of the British Veterinary Association. Let me bring Masood Khawaja, who's director of the organisation Halal Consultations, into the conversation. Good morning to you, Masood.
Hello, good morning to you.
And also Tony Wardle, who's Associate Director at Viva. They campaign for a vegetarian and vegan world. Good morning to you, Tony.
Morning.
Masood, killing animals the halal way without stunning them is cruel, according to the British Veterinary Association.
Well, as a matter of fact, this debate has been going on for a long, long time, and I think they are equating it to the animal welfare. My question to them is this, that have they woken up just now, simply because have they forgotten about 30 years ago in UK, they used to slaughter animal on cradle. One man used to hold the hind leg, the other used to hold the neck, as it were, and third one used to slaughter. It is the expediency of the machinery which has been brought into it, and then suddenly it became animal welfare, and everything else was...
I'm sure you're absolutely right that, as with anything, things have improved, science has improved, the methods, the machinery has improved. So do you think the halal method of still killing animals when they are fully conscious at the time of killing them, is that now cruel? Is it time for the halal meat producers to move with the times as well?
No, on the religious dictum, I would not say it is cruel at all, because what we have to see...
Well, it is cruel if the animal suffers.
No, let me please, say that to your listeners as well. I mean, the gentleman, was talking about that a captive bolt is so animal friendly as such that the animal goes into a sort of trance quickly. It does not feel the pain. I mean, let me ask you this question: if one's brain goes to smithereen, doesn't one feel pain about it? Doesn't one actually die prior to anything else? Because brain is the main function.
But as you've just heard the president of the British Veterinary Association say, they have tried it, it has been tested, and it is very clear that the animal's pain receptors
there are many things being tested, as a matter of fact. I mean, a Muslim, I don't want to upset other people who are actually indulging in this, but it has been accepted that, more than one glass of wine actually affects brain as well. Have we stopped that as well? We are not going to.
Oh, that's completely different. You cannot compare people having a glass of wine with an animal suffering for potentially 2 minutes unnecessarily.
No, that's what I'm trying to explain.
Well, it's a silly argument to bring in, talking about glasses of wine.
No. The reason I was saying that is really true, that as well is...
Yes, but it has nothing to do... We're talking about cruelty to animals here, and unnecessary cruelty.
No, please listen to what I'm saying, because if I'm given a chance to sort of explain it, this is one of the reasons. In Islam it says in there, just like in Jewish system, that the blade has to be so sharp that the one swipe would not actually hurt the animal.
Well, let me just speak to Tony then, because, I know, Tony, ideally, you, Viva, you would rather we were all vegetarian. It's just not going to happen. But just respond to that point that Masood and indeed Shimon made earlier, that if you've got a very sharp knife, one swift swipe to the throat, the animal loses consciousness, instantly there is no suffering. Is that true?
Well, it's clearly not true, and we've filmed it. We've filmed both halal and Jewish slaughter. try and understand, how do you, with one swipe, cut the throat of an animal whose neck is thicker than our body? I'll tell you how you do it. You put it in a crush, you raise its chin with a chin lift, and then with a very long knife, you saw away at its throat. And we filmed it, official Shakita Jewish slaughter, 17 backwards and forwards motions to get through the neck of a huge animal. And the shock on its face is just unbelievable. But really, that's an emotional argument, and science has done it all for us. The government's own Farm Animal Welfare Council has carried out two deep researches into this, and it is quite clear. In fact, it states very significant pain and distress is caused to animals who have their throats cut. And that's scientific research through the slaughterhouses of Britain. It's an appalling medieval practice, and I really can't believe that in the 21st century somebody's eternal salvation depends on cutting the throat of a terrified, completely innocent animal.
I want to talk to both of you a little more, but we have to go to the news. Can I ask you both just to hang on for a couple of minutes and I shall come back to you?
Sure, indeed. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll hear more from them. And of course, if you're listening to this debate and if you want to join in, would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? From what you've heard, what are your thoughts? 08459 455 555. We're having what is, I'm sure many of us who are animal lovers find a rather upsetting conversation this morning on the Big Phone-In, but the reality is, particularly for those of us that eat meat, this is something that we should be aware of. We're talking about halal and kosher meat production, and I'm asking whether it should be banned in the UK. It has been banned in Denmark now. And according to the spokesperson for kosher food in the UK, banning halal and kosher meat, the Danish have insulted millions of people around the world. What do you think? Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK, or would that offend you? Pick up that phone. Come on and have your say on 08459 455 555 across bed.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Yes, good morning if you've just tuned in. It's the JVS show. I'm Jonathan Vernon-Smith, and on this morning's Big Phone-In, I'm asking, would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? Denmark has banned meat that has been slaughtered in the Jewish and Muslim way. That's kosher and halal. Neither of these methods use stun guns before the animal has its neck cut. So the fact is, the animal, according to the animal rights protesters and those that are certainly from the British Veterinary Association who confirmed earlier, they say the animal is fully conscious at the time of its throat being slit, and as a result the animal suffers unnecessarily. Well, is it time that our government did what the Danish government has done? And that is to say, you know what, we need to put the rights of the animal's welfare above religious rights. Or do you agree with the spokesperson for kosher food in the UK, Shimon Cohen, who told me that banning halal and kosher meat, by doing that, Denmark has insulted millions of people around the world? Masood Khwaja is director of the organisation Halal Consultations. He's been patiently hanging on during the news. You're still there, Masood?
Yes, I am, yes.
Also Tony Wardle, who's associate director at Viva, who campaign for a vegetarian and vegan world. Masood, I want to put to you the point that Tony raised just before the news. He said that you've got to stop peddling this idea that you have such a sharp knife that it's literally one quick slice to the neck and that's it. The animal loses consciousness and dies. He says, particularly with big animals, with cows, for example, that many of us eat for our mince and our steak and everything like that, it takes quite a lot of hacking away at that poor animal's throat before you cut it properly. Now, well, if that animal is conscious, that is cruel.
Well, I'm not privy to the slaughterhouse with the event, but the Islamic principle is there are three reasons that the slaughtering in Islam and in the Jewish sort of procedure Shakita is done. One is if the animal is not dead prior to slaughter. Second is this all flowing blood is drained out because the blood has got bacteria in it, and someone does the rendition of shahada, meaningly invokes the name of Allah. So let me explain this there, that the other rules are that the knife should be 4 times the size of the neck. I mean a beast's neck, a cow's neck, is whatever the size is, because they're about 300-400 pounders sort of thing. So that is the knife has to be taken, and that's why we have agreed, and we have trained Muslim slaughtermen, those who will be slaughtering, and the Jewish slaughtermen as well, with one kind of clean swipe. If someone
so hang on a second. This is very crucial. You're saying it takes just one swipe with the knife to kill the animal and render it unconscious?
To cut the throat.
No. I want to pin you down on that point. Does it take just one swipe of the knife to kill the animal and render it unconscious?
No, it would cut the throat, and that would render unconscious, because it cuts the jugular vein, windpipe, and carotid arteries.
And
so
how many swipes does it take to achieve that?
Just one. It should be
right. So Tony, according to Masood, you're talking nonsense when you talk about this having to swipe backwards and forwards.
No, I do not know where they have filmed it, because we have been around with compassion in world farming, and we have actually produced video in my previous organization, and we have agreed to that, and that's how it should be.
Tony, it's only one swipe. You've heard from Masood. It's one swipe. It's not.
As I've said before, how do you kill an animal with one swipe when its throat is wider than our body? And it's actually built into the Jewish directions that you can cut backwards and forwards so long as the knife doesn't leave the throat. I mean, we filmed it. We know that it's nonsense, that claim. And also the Farm Animal Welfare Council, it is absolutely clear. It can take a cow up to 1 minute to die, a calf up to 2 minutes, and sheep up to 30 seconds. And the animals that we've filmed being cut do not die instantly. And in the case of the beef cattle, I just cannot get my head around this. They slice away at its throat, 17 backwards and forwards motions. The animal is standing there, fully conscious, hasn't collapsed, and then suddenly, after 30 seconds, a hand comes in with a stun gun, comes into frame, and shoots it with a stun gun. How can that make any difference to anybody's life, whether that animal is stunned before or after it's cut? It is medieval nonsense that's become enshrined, and people will not back away from it.
Masood, medieval nonsense.
Well, I would not use that kind of wordings at all, because the thing is, religion is religion, and the Jewish religion and Muslim religion, indicate the same way. But the gentleman is saying that he has seen it. Perhaps he's right. That's why what we have done in the Muslim circles is this: that we have ensured that the Muslim slaughtermen, one, they should be licensed and they should be aware of hygiene and animal welfare as well. And I'm insisting on this answer of mine, that by cutting the throat, we are not killing the animal, we are helping the animal to kill, because it goes into trance, it goes into
trance.
Can I just come in here? Viva put an advert in the Meat Trades Journal and asked slaughtermen who had experience of religious slaughter to contact us, and 17 of them did. And men who spend their lives killing animals were outraged, particularly at Muslim slaughter, saying that people rolled up with blunt knives, there was no concern for the animals, and these men were angry.
That is the responsibility of the slaughterhouses, that they should actually control that. Luckily, what I would say is that in my previous organization for nearly 20 years, we have done two things. One is this, that we are licensing Muslim slaughtermen, just like the Jewish slaughtermen are licensed, and we are trying to teach them as well, and we have taught many the animal welfare and the religious dictum as well. But as far as the religious dictum of this kind is concerned, they had tried to ban in Holland, and what happened, because of the commercial pressures, they came back to it. But what I would say to you is
what you don't say is that between 80 and 90% of Muslims accept pre-stunned meat. So what we're talking about here...
But you haven't asked me this question yet.
I'm just saying it because you've not raised it. So what we're talking about is, let's vary our law for whatever small percentage of a religion decide that that's what they want. We don't compromise our human legislation, our human rights legislation. If you want to live in this country, you abide by our human rights legislation. But it seems that where animals are concerned, we say, well, that's fine, that's part of your religion, you can do it. We allow no other encroachment on our human rights.
Let me just say one thing. I mean, Masood Khawaja has been on record, even in Farm Welfare Annual Council meetings, which I've attended many, and we were the one who had suggested the VAS 99-400 to say that we can do, free stunning, but not to kill the animal. But you see, the captive...
Well, stunning doesn't kill the animal.
Let me explain. If you put a captive bolt through the brain of the beast, it would die simply because brain goes to smithering.
No, it doesn't.
Brain goes to pieces.
According to the British Veterinary Association, and they are surely far better experts on animals than you or I or anybody else.
I'm not denying that.
If the British Veterinary Association has said that stunning doesn't kill... Hang on one second, Masood. If the British Veterinary Association says that it doesn't kill the animal, then it doesn't kill the animal, does it? They are the experts on animals.
Right. If it doesn't kill the animal, my challenge is this.
If you would like the gory details of how it's done, the captive bolt pistol causes a concussive shock which renders the animal unconscious. And then a rod is inserted through the hole made by the captive bolt pistol, and the brain is whisked up, and then its throat is cut.
Yes, but you see, if you put the captive bolt to the brain goes to pieces. I challenge anyone to say if they can revive that animal. That's why I am saying, and I have been on record for saying...
But why do you don't need to revive the animal if you're then going to slit its throat?
Because the religious axiom in both Jewish and Muslim religion rules are that the animal is alive at the time of slaughter. So if it dies prior to slaughter, prior to cutting the throat, then it cannot be used.
Masood Antony, stay where you are. Let me bring Darren in Bedford in. Darren, good morning. I understand you phoned in because you've worked in an abattoir for many years.
I'd previously worked there for about 3 years in an abattoir with the kosher boys, and what they're not telling you is that under 50% of what they kill goes through as kosher. They can kill up to 100 cattle and only accept 50 of them because they've died in the right way. Plus, they only take the forequarter. They don't take the hind because it's classed as dirty.
Just to explain, Darren, what that actually means. You say they kill 100, but they'll only use 40. What does that mean?
It hasn't died correctly because they've got the metre-long knife that they slit the throat. If it's not done in one clean movement and all the veins and all that are cut through correctly, they reject it. It's no good. So the general public are eating kosher meat without actually knowing it.
He's absolutely right, and the government has refused to label this meat, and it should do.
So you're saying that those cows that the kosher slaughtermen say, no, I'm sorry, we've not killed this in the kosher way.
It's also not just that.
It hasn't died. It hasn't died in the kosher way.
If they find an abscess or a growth or anything in the abdomen, then they will declare it trefa as dirty, and it's passed on. And it goes into the general population's meat supply.
Fine. So everybody else would then eat that animal.
Yes.
Yes.
But can you just confirm, Darren, having been in an abattoir and presumably you've killed animals?
I haven't. No. I worked in a separate part of the line.
Have you just turned a radio on, Darren?
No, I'm in an alleyway, sorry. I'm just out in the street.
I see, okay. You've seen it happening, though, have you?
Oh, I've watched it. Yeah, I've watched it happen, yeah.
So tell me, as someone who has been there and has presumably seen both, you say you've seen the kosher way of killing an animal and the non-kosher way.
Yeah.
Is it true that killing an animal the kosher way, in your experience, the animal suffers?
6 and 2 3s because the nerves just go mad on the animal. So you can't really tell whether it's conscious or aware of what's going on.
What do you mean, the nerves?
Its nervous system. They start kicking and throwing themselves about. It's not a very nice sight.
Well, that sounds absolutely horrible.
Well, they walked into a frame. It literally lifts their neck up, so they're looking up as high as they possibly can, and then they bless it, and then whoosh, with one swipe action, they cut the throat, and then it rolls out onto the floor, and they shackle it up by one back leg as they're kicking and throwing around.
But the fact that the animal is kicking and throwing around sounds as if the animal is suffering at that point.
Well, people could put that down to the nervous system. I couldn't tell. I wouldn't say either way.
But when an animal is pre-stunned, is it more calm?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, they roll out onto the floor and they don't kick about as much. That's when they're bolted between the eyes.
As much?
As much, definitely.
Okay, all right.
But they're not saying nothing about that they only use the forequarter with the lambs. The lambs is done exactly the same way, but they only have the forequarter and breast. They do not touch the saddles on the rear or the hind at all.
Did you find it upsetting, or do you get kind of used to it? Because I'm just finding the whole conversation very deeply upsetting this morning.
It wasn't a nice job. It was the people you worked with that made the job, but it paid the bills.
Right. Okay, Sharon, thanks very much indeed for your call. So, Tony, let me just go back to you. There's a real echo coming down somebody's line now. Tony, let me just put that point to you. Even when the animal is stunned through the head, the animal still kind of writhes around.
I find this a rather bizarre debate, because I think that all slaughter is obscene, because highly evolved sentient animals that don't want to die are going to complain. What we have to rely on is the science, and the science is clear that when used properly, a captive bolt pistol renders the animal unconscious, and then its throat is cut. And really, what you see is neither here nor there. It's what the science tells us. And on the question of people being offended, I can assure the Jewish lobby that there are tens of millions of people who are outraged that this barbaric practice still...
Why are you focusing just on the Jewish religion? I've noticed several times now you've only talked about the Jewish community.
Because up to 90% of Muslims accept pre-stunned meat. That's why, because it is a religion that isn't quite so hidebound in its requirements for slaughter. And I suppose also because we have the footage of animals, large steers being slaughtered, is so upsetting. I've been looking at this footage on and off for over 12 years, and it still makes me want to vomit when I look at it. And I think that's why, because it is particularly offensive and horrible with large animals who do not die willingly and don't want to die. And on the question of offence, like I say, millions of people across the world are outraged by this.
Okay.
And actually, Viva conducted a Maury public poll to see what the public's opinion was.
OK, well, we're going to conduct our own poll now. Thank you very much indeed. There's Masood Khawaja, who's the director of the organisation Halal Consultations, and Tony Wardle, who's associate director at Viva. I'm very interested to know that point that Tony just made, the fact that 90% of Muslims are now prepared to eat meat that has been pre-stunned, so the animal is unconscious when it's killed. Is that true? Any of my Muslim listeners this morning, is that true? Are you happy? Would you be happier, having heard what you've just heard, to eat animals that were unconscious when they were killed? 08459 455 555.
Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is Jonathan Vernon-Smith.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Yes, and this morning on the Big Phone, we're talking about the fact that Denmark has banned halal and kosher meat production. If you are only just tuning into the radio now and you're not sure what the difference really is, the main difference is, apart from the fact that obviously various blessings are made over the animal, the main difference and the main objection that many people have around the world to halal and kosher meat production is that the animal is fully conscious when it is killed. The standard meat production in this country and in most of Europe is that the animal must be stunned first, so the animal must be in effect brain dead before you then kill it. Well, do you think that that is what should be the case, and we should stop allowing halal and kosher meat slaughter in this country? Or would that be, as the spokesperson for kosher food in the UK said, very insulting to millions of people around the world? 08459 455 555. David's in Harlington. Hello, David.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to say, David?
Well, going back now, I suppose it's about 50 years ago, I used to work for a company in Luton that we used to collect the cow hides and sheep skins for processing from all the slaughterhouses within sort of 100-mile radius of Luton. And regularly, when you went to Windmill Road in Luton, there used to be a slaughterhouse there years ago. They used to have this guy come in about once a fortnight and do the meat for the halal. And there was about 6 slaughtermen in there, and literally every time he come in, they used to hold the head slaughterman down, because believe me, if he'd have got his way, he'd have knifed the bloke, let alone, killing the cattle that way.
Why? Why were they hostile to the man that came in and...
Well, because they reckon it was so cruel, and I'm going back 50 years ago, and they couldn't stand watching him, because they used to chain the animal up by its back legs on a conveyor, and he used to just come along and slit its throat, and it's jumping and gurgling all about, before it dies. Where their way, where they shoot them with a bolt, they're out in seconds, and that's it, finished with.
I've never been in a slaughterhouse, and I don't want to go in a slaughterhouse. I would find it deeply, deeply upsetting. I really would, and that makes me a terrible hypocrite, because I'm a meat eater. I'm well aware of that, but it's just me being honest. I just wouldn't want to see it. I would find it desperately, desperately upsetting. However, I would like to think that the slaughter men and women in this country take great pride in what they do, and they try to do it with a kind of level of compassion towards the animal. In your experience, is that the case, or am I misguided?
I think that the slaughter people just don't like it. Our people don't like the way they kill them.
No, but do they take pride in the way that they kill them under, typical standard slaughter processes in this country?
All I can say. I've of all the slaughtering I've ever seen when I've gone in slaughterhouse, I've never seen anyone, like that, being nasty, and I think they killed them properly, and that was it.
So based on your experience, you feel that those that worked in the industry felt that the halal method of killing animals was more cruel?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
OK. All right, David, thank you very much indeed for calling in this morning. Jenny's in Bedford. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, what are your thoughts then? Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK?
I would certainly like to see it. I've been a proponent of that for many, many years, and I can't bear the thought, and I think that I don't think that we would be hurting people from different faiths if they don't want to live here. This is our country. The way we do things should...
But hang on, Jenny. There are lots of Muslims and Jews who have been born and bred in this country, and it's every bit their country as much as your country.
Well, I'm sorry, but the laws should be that OK, well, so that you might want the law changed in this country, but you can't turn it into if you don't want to live here, you should go and live somewhere else where they do accept that. Many people who eat halal and kosher food are born and bred in this country, and this is their country. Well,
they shouldn't have to move abroad, should they?
Well, I don't know about that, but I applaud Denmark. I absolutely applaud Denmark, and I think it's so cruel. And actually, I have written to David Cameron about this subject. But also, we don't know what meat we're buying. In the supermarket, they do not label it. And I've begged David Cameron to make that a law, that meat is labelled, because I do not want to eat meat like that. So therefore, I will not buy meat from the supermarket that told me that they source their meat from those abattoirs, because then they can sell it to everybody and they don't have to worry about it.
Jenny, thank you very much for your call. I'm really interested to hear from any of my Jewish or Muslim listeners. If you are, and of course your religion is very important to you, your religion is something you live your life by, but hearing from the British Veterinary Association, who, and let's face it, I mean, their sole purpose is the welfare of animals. That's what they're all about. They're not interested in religion or anything else. They're not interested in politics. They're interested in the welfare of animals and looking after animals. If they have said, as they have done on my programme this morning, that killing animals the halal and kosher way is cruel, then are you prepared to change? Are you prepared to say, you know what, actually, although my religion's still really important, I don't want animals to suffer unnecessarily. I wouldn't want to eat that lamb or that beef if I knew the poor animal had taken 2 minutes to die and had really suffered. really suffered at the end of its life. 08459 455 555. Or perhaps you think that people who aren't Muslim or Jewish, they just don't get it. They don't understand how important it is to you. Caris is in Strictly. Hello, Caris.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello. What would you like to say, Caris?
A couple of years ago, we were reading, my colleague and I were reading a little bit in the newspaper about halal killings, etc., and we didn't really like the idea very much. So we set about, I won't name the supermarket.
No, please.
But we set about trying to find out whether one of the big supermarket chains used halal meat or not, or how their beef, sheep, etc., was slaughtered.
Yeah.
It took us quite a long while, 2 or 3 days, of really doing a Jonathan, and we finally got to the bottom of it, and they admitted, not in writing, that most of their meat on the shelves is halal slaughtered because it's easier than, because their customers are obviously multi-religious, multi-everything. It was easier to make sure it was halal slaughtered, so it pleased everybody.
So, presumably you feel that's wrong?
Absolutely, we should know. And it should be labelled.
Well, should we know, or should we just ban halal and kosher meat production like they have done in Denmark?
Well, I would love to see that, but I can't see that happening in our country because our governments are too spineless.
OK, thank you, Caris. Christine, hello to you.
Hello there, Jonathan.
Good morning. What would you like to say, Christine?
Well, I think that every meat eater should have to visit a slaughterhouse just to see where their meat comes from and how how cruel it is.
You're right in many regards. It makes those of us, and I know I'm getting some text from people, and I totally understand this. I'm getting some text from people saying, "Oh my word, I've had to turn your programme off this morning. It's so upsetting." I understand that. I find it upsetting as well. I'm an animal lover, and the thought of any animal suffering at the end of its life is deeply awful. And it does make me a terrible hypocrite. I wouldn't want to go and see what happens in a slaughterhouse. I just wouldn't want to do it.
You should have to visit it, because then it might change your mind. I've lived a vegetarian diet for many, many years. I have the most wonderful diet.
But if we all become vegetarians, we won't survive.
Why not?
Because we need animals.
No. What to eat?
And let's face it, if it wasn't for meat eaters, then none of the cows and the lambs and the chickens in the world, none of them would survive. They'd be alive in the first place because there'd be no need for them. I mean, why would farmers bother wasting all their money raising cows if we didn't eat them? They wouldn't.
Well, they wouldn't, but personally, if I didn't see them, it wouldn't upset me because I know the end result for those poor animals, and it really...
But if it's quick and if it's relatively painless for the animal...
You cannot... No one can guarantee that, and I just think that the slaughtermen don't always have the interest of that animal at heart when they're killing it.
OK, Christine, thank you very much. 08459 455 555. I'll take many more of your calls in the next hour. I know lots of you still wanting to have your say on this. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? In the next hour of my programme, we'll discuss whether or not it's boring being a stay-at-home mum, but my top story today, Denmark has banned halal and kosher meat production. Would you like to see the same thing happen in this country? Keep those calls coming through on 08459 455 555. This is the JVS Show. Thank you, Jane. Good morning. Welcome to the JVS Show. I'm Jonathan Vernon-Smith. Coming up at 11 today, I'll be tackling your consumer problems. You can email me now, if you so wish, jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. If you're going to email me with a consumer problem, though, please, 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 make sure you put your telephone number at the end of the email. Before then, in this hour of my show, I want your views on the halal and kosher meat that's legally for sale across beds, hearts and bucks. Denmark has banned kosher and halal meat because ministers agree that animal rights must come before religion. European regulations require animals across the UK, including here in the 3 counties, to be stunned before they're slaughtered. But they grant exemptions on religious grounds. Under the halal and kosher system, animals are fully conscious as their esophagus is cut. Well, in the last hour of my programme, we heard the debate from all sides, but I really want to hear your thoughts on this. I know, it's an upsetting conversation to have, but It's a reality. It's going on every single day, and we can shy away from it. We can pretend it's not happening, but it is happening, and I'm sure you have an opinion one way or the other. Keep those views coming through. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? You can call me now on 08459 455 555. You can text me 81. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? Let's get some reaction to this story today from Stephen Evans, who's from the National Secular Society. Hello to you, Stephen.
Hi, good morning, Jonathan.
Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned?
Absolutely, yes, we would support a ban. The scientific consensus is very clear that slaughter without pre-stunning causes completely avoidable pain and distress to animals at the time of the slaughter. And that's why the practice of slaughtering the animal without first rendering them unconscious is actually prohibited in all European membership states. As you pointed out earlier, there is an exemption that's given to Muslim and Jewish groups that permits them not to follow the law that everybody else must follow. And I don't think we should have a situation where something being a religious belief means it can't be questioned and it can't be scrutinised. So yes, we would absolutely support a ban. Until we get a ban, it's very important that this meat is labelled so those that don't want to eat it can avoid it if they wish. They can't at the moment.
It would be terribly offensive, though, wouldn't it, to many people who would say, well, I can only eat kosher or halal meat because of my religion. So if you prevent me from being able to buy it in this country, what am I going to eat? I mean, that's how I'm sure many people would feel.
Well, actually, it's not the case that they wouldn't be able to buy it in this country. Of course, they would still be able to import it from countries that do allow the practice. So countries outside of Europe, well, actually some countries within Europe that permit the practice, they could import it from there. Of course, there may be a cost premium, they may have to pay more, but if it is that important to them, I'm sure that would be a price worth paying. At the moment, what's happening is meat from religious slaughter is being slipped into the general food chain. We're all eating it. And that means we're artificially subsidising the religious slaughter industry. So, yes, they could still eat it. They may have to import it. But the fact is, 80% of Muslims, 80% of Muslims do eat, 80% of animals are actually pre-stunned before slaughter for the halal market.
Have you ever
that Muslims accept this, and Muslims do accept pre-stunning for the most part.
Have you ever seen an animal being killed either the halal or kosher way?
I certainly have on video, not up close and
You've not seen it personally.
I certainly have.
Just over you are, Stephen, because Rosemary in Luton has called in and wants to have her say on this. Rosemary, good morning.
Morning, Jonathan.
Morning. What would you like to say to Stephen Evans from the National Secular Society? Because I understand you have seen animals being slaughtered in the halal way.
I have. I haven't seen it done in an abattoir. I understand that would probably be completely different.
Where have you seen it then?
I've seen it in whenever we have been on holiday abroad. I have seen it done by my husband, my brother-in-law, where they have slaughtered. We have ritual slaughter at certain times, for example, after Ramadan.
So you're a Muslim, are you?
I am Muslim, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your husband has slaughtered an animal in the halal way?
Yes.
What kind of animal?
It was sheep.
Sheep. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
It was actually done with so much gentleness and respect for the animal. As I say, it may be different in an abattoir.
Talk us through it. How did it work?
They hold the animal, him and his brother hold the animal down, but they hold it down in such a way, they're soothing it, they're talking to it the whole time, they're stroking its head, to get it very, very calm. The knife that they use must be a knife which is large enough, it has to be sharp enough, and it is done literally with one swift cut across which severs the arteries and the windpipe, and all that the animal did was give what I can only describe as a sigh. That's what it sounded like, which obviously is maybe the air escaping from the lungs, I don't know. No other sound than that. No.
Well, it couldn't make any other sound because it had its throat slit.
It didn't, but it wasn't. It didn't seem as if it was distressed in any way. Children were watching as well. They weren't distressed by it because it was done in a way that was done with respect for the animal.
This can't happen on a mass scale, though.
It can't, but I'm saying that it can be done correctly. And if, talking about, so many Muslims in this country, accept stunned meat, accept non-halal meat, I don't know any practicing Muslim, and I know many, many, many practicing Muslims, I don't know one practicing Muslim who would do that, who would eat meat that wasn't halal.
But Rosemary, just explain to all of us listening to the programme, I presume you are a person who likes animals.
Yeah.
right? And you are a person that wants animals to experience the least amount of suffering in the food production system as possible. Yeah? So, taking your religion to one side, if you recognise the fact that, of course, in meat production there will always be a level of suffering for the animal, the poor animal at the end of its life, it's going to have some level of suffering, but then most of us do when we die. It's just a fact of life, isn't it? But why would you not be prepared to say, well, you know what, I still want meat that's been blessed, I still want meat that's had everything done, but I just like meat that in the least possible way the animal suffered?
Well, in that case, if I didn't think that the animals were being treated properly in an abattoir, for example, then I would become a vegetarian. For me, there wouldn't be an option. If I was sure that my halal meat was slaughtered in a way that wasn't...
but you know it's not slaughtered in the way that you've seen your husband slaughter a sheep. You know it's not, because...
Which is why I'm mainly buy vegetarian now, or I'm pretty particular about where I buy my halal meat, you know? Where it's coming from somewhere where it's a family-run business which is in England, and it's done in such a way that it is done with respect to the animals.
Stephen, just respond to Rosemary's point. I mean, from how she describes it was peaceful, it was calm, and she doesn't see what the fuss is.
Yeah, she paints a very nice picture, and I'm sure...
well, that's what I've seen. That's what I have seen. That's my experience. I haven't seen it done elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think it would be quite so pleasant if you saw it on an industrial scale. Look, the RSPCA, Compassion in World Farming, the European Federation of Vets, all believe, and this is on scientific evidence, that it does cause unnecessary pain and distress to animals. So I think that really needs to be a given, that it is unnecessarily distressful for animals. I mean, just imagine yourself, if your throat was to be cut, would you prefer to be unconscious or conscious at the time? So I think that is beyond argument, really. The only argument is, should we, for the sake of not offending religious sensitivities, allow this to happen? Now, as a secularist, I don't believe in exemptions for religious groups, the laws that other people must follow. Cockfighting was a very strong tradition at one time, as was fox hunting more recently. Supporters of those weren't able to play the religion card and get a free pass.
Rosemary,
so I don't see why supporters of religious slaughter should be able to play that religion card and be exempt from laws that everyone else must follow.
Rosemary, how would you feel if our government did do what the Danish government have done and banned it?
I would become a vegetarian. You know, obviously I wouldn't like it because it would give us more restrictions on what we can eat. But, you know, first and foremost, I believe that what happens to the animal is very, very important. And if it was banned, I'm not going to, you know, there's not a lot that I could do. I just wouldn't eat meat in this country. I'm not going to eat non-halal meat.
Rosemary,
actually, it really is an important point to stress that 80% of animals are stunned before slaughter for the halal meat industry. So just because something says it's halal, that means it's been blessed. It doesn't mean that it wasn't stunned before slaughter. Kosher is the bigger issue, but 80% of meat that you eat is actually pre-stunned. So you probably are already eating pre-stunned meat.
Okay, whenever it comes with certification to say that it has been definitely not pre-stunned before slaughter. Does that change anything, or are they lying?
I would imagine if it says it was definitely 100% non-pre-stunned, then that should obviously be what it says.
I can't believe, though, that you'd actively seek out that assurance, Rosemary.
No, well, for me...
Most Muslims really don't mind.
No,
it just seems so odd. It seems like, you know, look at the back of the packet. Yeah, hang on. I would definitely want to eat this chicken, but only if I know that the chicken was fully conscious when it had its poor little throat slit. I mean, it just seems such a bizarre thing to do.
If it's not, you know, the thing. My uncle was a cattle farmer in Northern Ireland. Okay, now he used to go with his animals whenever they were being slaughtered. He used to go and he used to stay there and make sure that they were slaughtered correctly. And he found it extremely distressing and said that it was very, very distressing for the animals as well. So I think a lot of it is in the method in which it is done. If it is done correctly, the same with a lot of things in Islam which people have misconceptions about. If it is done correctly with the interest of the animal at heart, then it's done properly and it's done well. If it's not, then, you know, I just have to go with what I can... What I can manage.
But we have to look at why it's done. Why is it? I mean, being sure the animal was alive and conscious at the time of killing was probably a very sensible precaution back when this method of killing was originally practiced. because it ensured that the animal was healthy and that the meat was fresh and fit for consumption. But that is totally redundant in the modern age. We don't need to do that anymore. We know it's fit for consumption. So you have to look at the origins of this and why we're still letting religious tracts dictate what we do in modern farming practices.
You surely recognise that, Rosemary. I mean, it's the point that was made earlier. Back in the day, when the various religious books were written, then the only way you would have had of stunning an animal would have been to kind of club it over the head with a rock, which, of course, is a rather hit-and-miss way of doing it. Now we have... And, of course, to try and protect animals from being killed in that very cruel way, of course, that's a good thing that religion tried to do. But now that everything has moved on somewhat, and we're no longer talking about clubbing animals over the head with a rock, but having a proper machine that stuns the animal, that makes it different, doesn't it?
I honestly don't know. I haven't thought about that side of the argument, but all I can say is that I will continue to eat halal meat.
Rosemary,
I will continue to try and source it from...
Stay where you are.
Okay.
Stay where you are, because I know we're getting a lot of calls that are coming through, and a lot of calls who want to speak to you. Okay. And if you're Stephen Evans from the National Secular Society, thank you very much indeed for your time. If you want to respond to Rosemary, who is a Muslim who says she wouldn't want to eat meat that wasn't halal, 08459 455 555. That's my telephone number. Let me speak to Patricia, who's in Stevenage. Hi, Patricia.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hello. You're through to myself and Rosemary. What would you like to say?
I've been listening, and I'm absolutely appalled that I've actually been eating meat that may be halal, because I'm dead against animal suffering, and I'm dead against the way they're killed for both halal and kosher. I'm really... They're talking about, offending Muslim people in Denmark by having a ban. But what about me and all the people like me who are offended at having to eat meat that has been killed where the animal may have been suffering? You know, that really bothers me. That really does bother me now.
Do you understand that, Rosemary? That Patricia feels offended herself as a non-Muslim, non-Jew, and she does not want to eat halal or kosher food, and yet she probably is.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. So they need to be asking questions of the meat supplier to find out in what way it was slaughtered.
Mm.
You know, I shouldn't. I disagree totally. We have a law that says that it has to be that animals should not suffer, that they have to be stunned. That is the law. We are changing our law for the sake of various religions, and whatever the sake is, it doesn't matter what we're changing it for. We should not be changing it if it's stopping animal suffering, and that's my whole point. It's kind of, yours is a negative argument to the suffering of animals, and I don't understand that. And I don't want to eat meat where an animal has suffered in its death.
But Rosemary's experience of halal is not suffering.
But that's not the experience of science, and I believe the scientist before I believe the religious man. I'm sorry.
OK, stay where you are, both of you. Let me bring Mohammed in Milton Keynes in. Good morning to you, Mohammed.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, what are your thoughts on this, Mohammed?
First of all, let me start by saying as a Muslim, I don't mind eating non-halal food. It is just my personal preference. However...
You don't mind eating non-halal meat?
No, I do eat...
Is that in the same way that I know some Jews who'll eat bacon sandwiches?
It is, well, basically, it's just some, sheikhs have views that you can eat meats of Christians and some other religions, which is fine. So I just, if you would like to call it, I'm not quite strict on that. It's just for me eating meat at the end of the day.
Okay.
However, what I wanted to say is that I think any human would not expect to see an animal suffering, and I'm one of them. And I think the whole, the central point to this argument was that the animal should not be suffering the pain when it's being killed. And actually, as far as I know, according to the Muslim rules, if you sedate the animal before you kill it and then you cut its throat, it's still considered halal, as far as I know. And that's why I wish if you bring actually someone who's expert in explaining the rules about what would make halal meat halal.
Rosemary, how does it make you feel as a Muslim that Mohammed is prepared to eat food that isn't halal?
All I can say is that is his choice, but it wouldn't be my choice. Jonathan, I'm sorry, but I do have to go.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much indeed for your call, Patricia. Thank you, Mohammed. And thank you for everyone that's been calling. And let's get back to your calls. Anne's in Luton. Hello, Anne.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to say, Anne?
My point really is that I don't want to eat halal meat, and my point is that I need to feel sure that I have the choice in that, because I'm not sure that meat is correctly labelled. I mean, if, for example, you go to a local wholesalers in Luton and buy a big tray of chicken breasts, on the back of it is a little sign which I asked what it meant and was told it meant that it was halal slaughtered. So most of the chicken is like that. Now, if you go into a supermarket, you have one little section that's halal and the rest of it says nothing. So also I buy my meat from a northern farmer who suggested that possibly 3/4 of lamb and sheep are slaughtered halal. Now, what I really object to is me not having the choice. I don't want to eat halal, and I want to have the choice. And I understand that a Northern MP, about 18 months ago, was trying to introduce a bill into Parliament about meat being correctly labelled, and apparently it failed on a technicality, so it didn't get anywhere. So this is the point. We need to know what we're eating, and I suspect that the halal method has slipped into the slaughtering generally, and that we are just unaware of that. So I need to know what I'm eating.
I think you're very right, and actually I think many people listening to the programme who will be going down to their supermarkets and they'll be picking up chicken breasts, lamb chops, packs of mince, many people will just presume that unless it says clearly on it that it is halal or kosher, that it will be non-halal or kosher, and actually that has been proven to not be the case. Most of the supermarkets, they do mix up the halal and the non-halal on the shelf. Certainly for if they are just selling it to a kind of mainstream client, not a client that actually wants to go for a specific kind of meat because of religious purposes. So I think you're very right, and I think we absolutely do need labelling. Would you therefore not go as far as to say that it should be banned in this country, like the Danish have done?
I find that rather difficult because, of course, there are people who, as much as I choose not to eat that, there'll be people who choose that they want to eat it. But
then it could be imported for them.
Yes,
and
I heard the previous caller from the Secular Society say that, and I hadn't thought of that. Yes, that could be a way forward. But I definitely think it does need looking into. I mean, look at when we had all those television programmes looking at the care of chickens, and there was a big hype about it. But nobody ever looked into how they were slaughtered. They looked into how they were cared for and so on, but nobody touched on the slaughter of them. So it is really quite a political hot potato, and nobody wants to get near it. But we deserve to know what we're eating.
And thank you very much. We do deserve to know what we're eating, and it's very easy, isn't it? You go down to the supermarket, and there in the meat section, there's all the little polystyrene packs with cellophane-wrapped meat cuts in there, and you pick it up, and you kind of become a bit detached from the fact that that meat part was once part of an animal, and that animal had a story. That animal was a living, breathing thing. That animal went off to a slaughterhouse and was killed, one way or the other. And we do have a right to know how that animal was killed, don't we? Mike is in Houghton Regis. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning, Mike. Jonathan, sorry.
What would you like to say, Mike?
Right, I just can't get over the conversation. Your first two callers, the guy from the society and the lady, she didn't paint a pretty picture at all. He said, well, you know, she's painting a pretty picture about holding it down and talking to it. Well, unless there's Dr. Doolittle, that animal hasn't got a clue what they're being told, and then cuts its throat and lets it bleed to death. It's barbaric and ancient. There's no need for it at all. What difference does it make if you stun the animal and then do the religious slaughter? It just makes me so angry. It really does. I had this debate at work with many Asian and Muslim people, and we talk about it, and it's not about cutting the animal's throat. It's about the praying and whatnot they do whilst the animal is being slaughtered.
Well, that's a part of it. And I guess what we have to remember, and I'm a non-religious person myself, but what we have to remember is that many religions when you know, they're all very, very old, aren't they? And the various books that were written for people to live their lives by, they date back a very long time ago. And many of those books were written at that time based on the resources that were available at that time. And many of those religious books were written as a way of leading better lives, less unpleasant lives and less cruel lives. And you surely can recognise that back in the day, when somebody went out hunting for their food, then if that person was to grab a big rock and to kind of repeatedly smash a sheep over the back of its head with that rock until it died, that's a very cruel and evil way to kill a sheep. So actually to say to people, no, you mustn't do that, you must take a knife and with one foul swoop slit its throat, then you can kind of understand why that message was given, to try and be less cruel to the animal at the time. But now, of course, things have changed, and now we don't kill animals in that kind of way. They are stunned with a bolt through the brain for a cow. I understand some animals are gassed, and other animals are electrocuted so that they are brain dead before you then slit their throat. It's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. What you're saying is that back in the day there wasn't such things as stun guns and whatever they do.
Yeah.
That's fine, and I understand that. But what I'm getting at is, I have a friend who slit his wrists, and thankfully, thank God, he's still here today, because what he attempted never worked. But you know, he made a call the second after he'd done that, and when I got time to speak to him, he described, the only thing he could describe about bleeding out was the pain that he was going through. Now, I can't put that onto an animal because I can't ask an animal, but I should imagine it's the same kind of pain. Yeah? So it's barbaric and it's ancient. They need to move on with the times and do it in the correct manner.
Mike, let me bring Amir in Luton. Hi, Amir.
Hi, good morning, JVS.
Hello. Slaughtering in the halal way is barbaric and cruel, according to Mike in Houghton Regis.
No, because the halal is exactly the way the UK government has recommended to the animal, because there's only about 99% of Muslims and the scholars of a Muslim in the United Kingdom, they do accept animal to be stunned before slaughter. So I don't know, there shouldn't be any.
Well, I spoke to Rosemary earlier. She doesn't want to eat meat. She's a Muslim. She does not want to eat meat that has been stunned beforehand.
JVS, I've been working in an industry for 5 years previously, and there's only, and I live in Luton, there's only one shop in Luton who believes, a Muslim halal shop, which they believe that animal shouldn't be stunned before slaughter. The rest all shops in Luton, they take a meat, they accept the meat stunned before it's actually slaughtered.
And that's your experience as a Muslim in Luton?
Yeah, exactly. And I've got my family, they're running a family business for about over 30 years. And they've been, a halal meat, and they're accepting it.
So if what you're saying then, Amir, is that the vast majority of Muslims are very happy to eat meat that was unconscious when it was killed, and if many other consumers in this country agree, then do you think the government should just outlaw killing without stunning?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I know you would, but
absolutely, that's fine. The basic principle of in Islam to have a meat before you slaughter the animal, how to slaughter the animal. The animal have to be alive before you slaughter. It doesn't matter if it's a conscious or if it's what situation it is. The animal have to be alive. That's the basic principle. You can't have a dead animal and then slaughter it.
But then do you consider...
All animals are alive before you slaughter them. Of course they're all alive.
But he means at the point of actually killing the animal.
Yeah, killing the animal, it have to be alive.
But if that's the case, then do you accept that when an animal is in effect brain dead, is it dead or is it still alive?
No, when the animal is brain dead, it's still alive.
Right. Okay. So that's how you justify it, because earlier we heard that wasn't the case. When the animal is brain dead, then in the eyes of Islam, when the animal is brain dead, the animal is dead, and therefore when you then slit its throat, you're killing an already dead animal.
Sorry, JVS. When some humans have a brain damage and his brain's not there, and the person is still alive, you don't just take the person and bury it because his brain's...
it's because he's on a life support machine.
Yeah, but once you take off the life support, if the person is still alive, if he's dead, is dead.
Okay, all right, Mike and Amir, thank you very much. I don't think you're going to agree. I am absolutely staggered. We have so many people wanting to talk about this today. The phone lines are going absolutely bonkers. We'll take some more of your calls in the next half hour. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK?
Every weekday from 3.
We began this morning's programme talking about halal and kosher meat, and we've not stopped talking about it because every single phone line is ringing away with people still wanting to have their say on this. It's been quite remarkable. And you know, when there's a subject that you're very passionate about and lots of you want to have your say, I will allow as many of you to have your say for as long as we possibly can. So we'll continue with this for the time being. I've been asking, would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK? Why? Well, the Danish have done it. The Danish have banned halal and kosher meat. And the spokesperson for kosher food in the UK has told me that by banning halal and kosher meat, Denmark has insulted millions of people around the world. He argues that kosher slaughter is painless and humane and should not be banned across the 3 counties. Well, halal and kosher meat is widely available across beds, hearts and bucks. But in Denmark, politicians argue that animal rights are more important than religion, so it's been taken off the shelves. If you're unaware, the main difference that people have an objection to is that with halal and kosher food, which is eaten by Muslims and Jews, some Muslims and Jews, it would appear, a fundamental part of the slaughter is that the animal must be alive when it has its throat cut. So in other words, the animal is fully conscious when they slice into its throat. The standard UK way of doing it, and indeed the standard European way of slaughtering an animal for meat production, is that the animal is in effect brain dead when you kill them. They are unconscious at that time. So based on that, would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK, or do you think it would be very offensive to many, many people here? Gary is in Bedford. Hello, Gary.
Oh, hello there.
Hi, Jonathan. What are your thoughts on this, Gary?
We've had one guy on there saying that we should import kosher meat, ban it in this country and import it. I just think that would drive it underground.
Yeah, and I guess there's also the argument that if the meat is imported, then you really don't have any kind of control over how that meat has been cared for, how the animal's been cared for, and how the end process is taken, whereas at least you would hope that slaughterhouses in the UK are periodically checked to make sure that they're doing things properly.
Precisely. I mean, a human being tortured in this country or Syria is a human being tortured, you know, so, and that goes for an animal as well, doesn't it? If it's being mistreated here or there. So I think it's much... I mean, I don't agree with halal or kosher meat, the way they do it, but it's better to be done in the open than on some farm in the middle of nowhere.
So you certainly wouldn't want to see it banned here? So if your view is representative of the vast majority of people in this country, then how do we start to change the minds of people that want to eat halal or kosher food?
Well, through education, I suppose. And I mean, it's correct what you've been saying this morning about things have moved on. But you're always going to get, whatever you ban, you're always going to get an underground market for things, you know. That's just my view on that.
OK, Gary, thank you for sharing your view. Jill's in Potter's Bar. Hello, Jill.
Hello, Jonathan. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. What would you like to say?
Well, I love your programme, and I'm very vehement about this because I phoned a friend within the last half an hour, my friend in Potter's Bar, and knowing about this before Christmas, she phoned all the local restaurants, and I mean all, and nearly every single one said they were serving halal meat. She said, well, why don't we know about it? And she put the phone down. And I think it's important that it's labelled at supermarkets so that we all know what we're eating. I think it's disgusting how it's done. Absolutely disgusting.
Do you accept that some people do want to eat it? And do you think it's acceptable that some people want to eat it in this country?
Well, I think they're probably going by the good book and how they've been brought up when they were younger.
Yes, and you have to accept, Jill, and you or I may not live our life by a religion. No. I certainly don't live mine by a religion.
No.
but many people do. And for many people, their religion is the core of who they are as a human being. And you can't just pick and choose things. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to take any notice of that. You've got to live your life by that religion if you are truly of that religion.
That's right. And I don't think we've got an atom of a chance of the government changing their mind like Denmark have. So I think in actual fact they ought to have special places. This is halal meat, and if you want to go there, so be it. And I think we should be able to choose. But we don't know what we're eating, do we?
Jill, thank you very much. I mean, my personal view, I don't want to eat halal meat. I don't want to. If I go to a restaurant, I don't want to eat halal meat. I don't want to eat kosher meat. Very, very simple. For me personally, I don't want to eat it, and I think I should have the right to not eat it in the same way that many people would argue they have the right to eat it. So perhaps ultimately, what our government could do, rather than banning the production in this country, what our government could do is to make it law that you have to label the meat. Restaurants have to make it clear. Supermarkets have to make it clear. Is that the way of trying to deal with this? So that everybody feels satisfied with what they're eating? Hussein, good morning to you. Hussein, are you there?
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. What would you like to say?
Firstly, I'm British Muslim. But I've got multicultural background. Hello?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm listening attentively to you, Hussein.
Okay. I was born in this country. This is my country. But I'm a Muslim. My mum's English. My dad's from Pakistan. Now, I've got best of both worlds. Now, how I see halal meat should be slaughtered, it should be slaughtered in the proper way. I.e., the knife has to be extremely sharp. There's a proper procedure for doing it. The animal has to be calm. The person who's going to slaughter the, whatever it is, whatever cattle you're slaughtering, chicken, sheep, cow, that also has to be relaxed. Now, if it's not relaxed and it's not done properly, then the animal is going to jump up around. It's going to be in pain, which then is not halal meat. It's not done in the proper way. Now,
okay.
Slaughterhouses around the UK and around the world, I eat halal meat wherever I can get it from. I.e., if it's from halal superstores or if it's from any other superstore which brands it halal. When it's being stunned, as long as the animal is still alive, then it's fine. Before it dies, you slaughter it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Fine. So you're happy to eat meat that has been stunned before it has its throat cut?
Of course I am. I've been doing it since I was born.
Right. So the other Muslims that you know, are they of the same opinion? Do they...
Exactly the same.
Okay, that's interesting, because I don't know if you heard Rosemary earlier, Hussein, but Rosemary said she absolutely would not want to eat meat as a Muslim. She would not want to eat meat that had been stunned beforehand.
Well, that's her personal preference. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims in the world. I mean, I'm a certain Muslim that has certain beliefs that the rest of the Muslims in the world don't.
Should her personal preference, though, override the UK law, which is that all animals have to be pre-stunned before they are killed?
No, I mean, obviously, I mean, in Islam, it teaches you about animal cruelty as well. We don't agree with it.
Okay, so if the UK government, if David Cameron turned round today and said, right, the government is going to change the law, we are now going to make it illegal for any slaughterhouse to kill an animal that has been not stunned first. We will make it illegal for that to take place. Would you be fine with that? Would you think, yeah, that's good, and Muslims can get behind that, or would you find that? Do you think that would upset a lot of people?
It's gonna upset certain Muslims. Majority of the Muslims in this world, we believe that as long as the animal is alive, if it's stunned but not killed before it's slaughtered, then it's fine.
And as far as you're concerned, stunning, which ultimately stunning is being brain dead.
Well, yeah, brain dead to a certain extent, not completely brain dead. It's going to kill it.
Well, it is brain dead because apparently, and I'm sorry to have to go over the details of it earlier, but they, with a cow, for example, a bolt will be shot into the animal's brain and its brain will be mashed up.
But there's that. I mean, if it gets to the point where it's actually killed the animal before it's slaughtered, then no. As long as the animal is still alive, it's breathing.
But Hussein, we're talking about seconds of difference. You know, so I don't believe that with the pre-stunning, there is pre-stunning of the animal, and then they kind of sit around, have a cup of tea and a coffee, and then they decide to sleep. This all happens, you can imagine, it's like a conveyor belt, it's like a factory, and this all happens within seconds. So the animal, even if the animal has kind of biologically died, then it's only been dead for a second or two before it has its throat slit. Does that really make any difference?
It does, but then it's not halal. Then it's not being slaughtered the correct way.
But then is that ridiculous? Is that particular rule in halal ridiculous?
No.
Why not? From a logical, take your religion out of it. From a logical point of view, is it not ridiculous?
That's the trouble. Is I can't take the religion out of it.
Why not?
I can't, 'cause that's my belief. That's my religion.
Yeah, but that's what you've been told, but you sound like an intelligent bloke, Hussein. Surely you can look at this, take your religion out of it, and see that a second's difference, if the cow has had its brain mashed to pieces or whatever, and in effect it is dead, it stopped breathing, and then a second later you cut its throat, what difference is that going to make?
You can stun an animal, right? You can stun it without mashing the brain. There are ways of doing it. You can stun it without mashing the brain.
Like what?
I mean, you can stun it without putting a bolt straight through into the brain. I mean,
but Hussein, you've just got to explain to me. I know your religion is important to you, and all people who have religions, their religion is very important to them. But you must also be able to look at things from a logical point of view and from a biological point of view.
We do that. We do. Majority of them do that. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so
we do. I do.
So surely you recognise that the whole basis of the halal rule being that you can only eat meat that has been killed with the slice to the neck. It was, if you trace it back far enough, it was to prevent people eating already dead animals that they might then become very ill from. Because,
that's right. That's one of the reasons.
But then what we're talking about, we're going back to the days where people would find an animal that was dead at the side of the road, might have died of a disease, take it home, cut its throat, and then eat it, and become very ill. We're not talking about that now. So if you take the basis of the religion out of it, and take it for what it was meant at the time, then surely you recognise that it no longer holds water today.
No, because I mean the way it's slaughtered, the reason why it's slaughtered in a certain way is to drain all the blood from every part of the body.
Yes.
Which everybody knows the blood is the one that carries the disease.
That rule was created to prevent people getting ill many years ago.
That's right, but we was taught that. We was taught that when Islam was discovered.
But sometimes, you know, but sometimes people are taught things, and actually, as we get older and we start to think for ourselves, we think, well, perhaps I have to take that in a different context.
But that is still valuable today. And JVS, you don't know a cow could have the foot and mouth at an early stage. You don't know that until it's properly checked up. That's what.
But that's completely different argument. There's no hygiene difference. There's no hygiene difference in 2014 between killing a cow, for example, the halal way and the non-halal way. There is no hygiene difference.
There is no hygiene. As long as the blood is being drained correctly and the animal is still alive, then it's fine.
But why does the animal have to be alive for 1 second while it has its throat cut?
Then it's not right for us to eat. I mean, we can't. I mean,
why not? Why not?
It's the principle of our religion.
But Hussein, you sound like a bright chap. I don't know how many more times I could say this. I'm trying to ask you to look at this and to put your religion, not to dismiss it altogether, but just to put your religion to one side and to look at this argument in a different way, and you won't do that.
I can't. I'm very different. I can't. But
okay, and that Hussein, is what I just can't personally. I can't understand. I just can't understand it. You know, I know lots of people live their lives by certain religious beliefs, but I can't understand why people can't at least question their religion. I mean, there's nothing wrong with questioning it, is there? To see whether you agree with certain parts of it, to look at where the religion came from, to see the origins of it, and to recognise the fact that the origins of many religions, they were based on good, solid, sound sense at the time they were written. But in 2014, things have changed. And perhaps some of those logical, sound reasons are no longer so important. And we can modify, we can adapt, we can change things without suddenly being disrespectful to God. 08459 455 555. Michael's in Letchworth. Hello, Michael.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, very interesting conversation. Actually, I missed a lot of it, but I listened to the last caller, and it just shows how barbaric this thing is. I mean, and really, it's down to religion. We have laws in this country. Why shouldn't the law be the same for everyone, every religion? I mean, would we? I mean, for instance,
because I guess, Michael, the answer to that question is because we are a religiously tolerant country. We have people who are Jewish who live in this country. We have people who are Muslim. We have people of all different Sikhs, Hindu. We have all different kinds of religions, and we recognise everybody, and we respect and allow people to live their lives by their religious beliefs, and that's surely a positive thing.
That's to a point. I mean, when it comes to, I mean, would we? I mean, in the papers a few days ago, there's a little girl who was mauled by a dog. Now that dog's been taken away, and obviously I assume this happens. It's happened a few times over the last year, and those dogs have been put down. They've been put down humanely. They've been put down with a needle. They could have had that. What, would we slit their throats?
But there's a difference, isn't there?
This government won't do anything about it because this government, they're frightened, they're scared to upset the Muslims and anyone in this...
But Michael, it's unfair to focus the argument on the Muslims because, as we have already heard...
Jewish people and Muslims.
Many Muslims are prepared to accept and to eat meat that has been unconscious when it was killed.
Well, that's fair enough, and that's the way it should be.
However, I understand with the Jewish community that is absolutely not the case.
But we have a rule in this country the way animals are, so the rule should be for everyone. This is a British society. The people here should abide by our rules.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. Incidentally, that point was made earlier by Tony from Viva, and he said that many Jews are still vehemently against animals being pre-stunned. I'd be interested to hear from any of my Jewish listeners this morning. I notice you're being very quiet. Come on and answer me that question. Is it true or not? 08459 455 555. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jonathan.
I understand you moved to the UK from Poland. What's your perspective on this debate, Peter?
Yeah, I've been here 10 years, and I think that people who move in here from another countries, they should follow the rules. And as far as I know, halal meat has been banned back in my country because it's just really sad how those animals are killed. I've watched a movie how a cow is killed and couldn't sleep. It was terrible. It's really sad that people hide behind religion and they make excuses just to make their point. And I just don't think this is really fair. I think we are a civilized country. We live in Europe. We should, follow the rules and try to obey them. I mean, you can't just come here and say that's because.
But you say you can't just come here. I mean, I understand, no. Peter. You've moved to the UK fairly recently, in the last few years or so. But there are many people who are born and bred in this country. Their parents lived in this country, who are Jewish, for example, and they like to live their lives the kosher way. They like to eat kosher food. You can't say to people, well, you can't come to this country and change our laws. I mean, but these are people that have lived in this country, and this is their country as well.
You're right. Yeah.
So don't we have to just be a little bit respectful and to understand that different people have different beliefs? Or do you think we should just look at it from the animal rights perspective and say, look, if the animal experts say it's cruel, then it's cruel, and that should override religion?
I think that's the point. I think it's very important everybody is happy, but I think this halal meat is just so cruel. I mean, it's really sad. If anybody watches a movie, how an animal is killed this way, it's honestly sad. I mean...
and when you say you've seen a movie, this was an animal killed in a halal way or a kosher way?
Yeah, it was halal way.
And what did you find particularly upsetting? You say you couldn't sleep that night after watching it.
How they killed the cow, they put it in this special like a clamp, and they just slipped its throat, and the cow was in so much pain, and
how do you know the cow was in pain?
Because I could hear the voice was on. He was trying to make a noise, but because it had the throat slit, it couldn't make any noise, and you could see all the blood going and seeping through. And the cow was in pain for, I don't know, maybe a minute. It was just crazy.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. John is in Buckinghamshire. Hello, John.
Hiya.
Hello, what would you like to say, John?
Okay, so I've actually done this whole slaughter thing, and there's a couple of misconceptions here. The use of the bolt is used to actually assassinate or to kill the cow, and it's done in an enclosure. The stunning is done when we look at sheep and pigs, okay? When you stun an animal, it's not brain dead at all. Okay, it will wake up again if you don't get it back up. What you do is you stun it, which is basically you knock it up to a sleep. You put a chain around its leg, you hoist it up above a bath, and then when you cut its throat, it usually comes back and wakes up if you've not stunned it long enough. Now, the thing is, I think there's room for both here, because just as you were saying that the religious people should adapt, or some of them should adapt their dogma. Which one could have a sympathy for, but they actually have a specific thing that says no, we cannot be rewritten. But there is a slaughterhouse in the UK that has found a way. I saw them interviewed where they kind of combine the two. They do the two simultaneously, and it is possible to do the two simultaneously. I would rather see it done here, under our rules and under our supervision. Because we do know that people will just go and get it somewhere else, and they'll get it. So what is it designed to do? This law, our law is designed to protect animals, to have them treated in a humane way. Now you can look at that law and you can say, oh yes, well, this was invented for hygiene. Well, so was not eating prawns and pig, because they couldn't be refrigerated, and that was so those foods are safe to eat now because of refrigeration. They were not at the time, and they would give you gut rot, and that's really where this has come from. But they're not going to adapt to their religion. But what we can do is we can have a version of halal that is of halal slaughter that is compatible with our law. And by the way, our law is there. Our law doesn't have an exception for halal. It is illegal not to kill an animal humanely, and so what we're not doing is we're not enforcing it. What we're doing is we're saying we're just turning a blind eye. So our law is already there for that. What we have to do is to say, well, we have to respect the rights of people and their beliefs, because maybe they're going to adapt their beliefs. So it might take them 500 years to do that. But if they want to live here, they have to have a compromise, which is that we find a way to meet their needs, but also to do it within our own hygiene and humane rules. And that's what I think is the solution here.
So it needs all parties working together. It needs the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the non-Jewish and non-Muslim community, all talking about the animal and trying to find a halfway house.
The stunning does not kill the animal. It does not make it brain dead. If you stun an animal and you don't actually, because typically,
but to stun a cow, you shoot it through the head with a bolt.
That's not stunning a cow. That is how you kill a cow. Basically, that's how we do it. That's how we kill cows. We put them in, because they're a much bigger animal. They're harder. With the other animals, you can lift them up and put them onto above the bath. It's much harder with a cow. So what they tend to do is they tend to put them in this enclosure so they cannot move. The enclosure's a big metal kind of frame, and it puts them in very close and holds their head still, and then the bolt comes in. That is actually a way of killing an animal. It's not a way. The bolt does not stun them at all.
Okay, John, thank you for your call. Al is in St Albans. Good morning to you, Al.
Hey, JVS, how are you doing this morning?
Yes, I'm well, thank you. What would you like to say, Al?
Good. Well, actually, a few things. Very interesting debate this morning. So I'm Jewish, and I'm proud to be Jewish. I consider myself a secular Jew, so I eat kosher meat and non-kosher meat. A couple of things. First of all, I completely agree with your earlier caller today. You should be able to know what you're eating. So generally, kosher meat tends to be a lot more expensive than non-kosher meat. So it's unlikely that you're going to go to a secular restaurant and eat kosher-produced meat. But I do agree that in the interest of fairness and giving people the choice, meat should be clearly labeled where it was slaughtered and how it was slaughtered. Now, I think actually trying to debate with, I think it was Hussein earlier, over the merits of kosher killing or halal killing is kind of ridiculous, because we all know that those who aren't religious find many aspects of religion kind of strange. I mean, in Judaism, if you're being religious, on a Friday night, you can't you can't operate a television. You can't switch the TV on or off. So, to debate the merits of kosher killing is kind of ridiculous.
But surely it is acceptable to explore the origins of the religious teaching and to explore why perhaps that was crucial and it was important at a time, but is no longer.
Yeah, you know what, JVS, I actually completely agree here. I think the way forward, you can't ban it because, again, people who are religious would just be up in arms. You can't really ban anything.
Going back to that point then.
Let me finish. Just let me finish. I don't think you can ban it, but I do think that there's a wise way to work with the religious communities and to work with the kosher farms and halal farms. And actually, as has been said earlier on the show, if an animal is slaughtered in a proper halakhic way, kosherly or halal, then there actually should be no pain at all to the animal.
Yeah, but the British Veterinary Association say that is nonsense, and surely they are the ones that care about the animal. They're the ones for whom the animal is their main priority. So if they say that's nonsense, can you not recognise that perhaps your religion has got it wrong?
Well, JVS, to be on Three Couches Radio to say which religion is right is kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, if you go to Israel, if you go to many other studies, we're not talking about some backward little farm here where, some rabbi is killing a chicken. I mean, these are very, very, very high-tech farms and establishments, and a lot of research is there to refute what you're saying as well, JVS. What I also would like to say is, you've really got to think about how that animal is cared for throughout its entire life.
Very true. We want animals to be well cared for throughout their lives and well cared for at the end of their life, surely. Thank you very much indeed for all of your calls. We must move on. That animal.
Yes.
So, if it just comes down to us all eating the same, does it really matter if you, for example, were to eat a piece of chicken that was non-kosher?
Well, yes, it matters very much, because I have a deep religious faith governed by a significant body of Jewish law that says that I can't do that. The only way in which Jews can eat meat is if it is to be slaughtered in the Jewish religious method.
And explain why that is so important to you.
Because Jewish faith is governed by religious law. We believe the Bible was given to Moses by God. We believe that those laws are divine, and that our entire code for 3,500 years or more is based on the Torah, which is the body of Jewish law.
But as with any religion, if you go back far enough, that, for example, these texts were written before we had the ability to stun an animal, and perhaps things would have been different.
Well, things may well have been different then, but the point that I'm making here is that today, in the 21st century, let's not talk about thousands of years ago, in the 21st century, there is no conclusive scientific evidence to show that the way in which we slaughter our animals for food is any less humane than any of the other methods. There is, in fact, a significant body of science that shows that our method is more humane.
There's Shimon Cohen, who speaks for the kosher food industry in the UK. Very interesting. And I don't know if you feel the way that I felt after I'd spoken to Shimon, but I almost felt as if some of the previous opinions I may have held were kind of deflated. Is that how you feel, having listened to that? Or perhaps you are still very much against halal and kosher meat production, and you don't like the way that the animals are killed. Pick up that phone, come on and have your say. 08459 455 555. Let's get some reaction to what Shimon was saying from Robin Hargreaves, who's the president of the British Veterinary Association. Good morning to you, Robin.
Good morning.
So, Shimon Cohen said that you, the British Veterinary Association, clearly don't have the animals' welfare at the forefront. Do you agree with that?
No, clearly not. And I wonder what he thinks we do have at the forefront of our minds. What I would like to correct, if I may, is at the beginning you said that the BVA has a position to call for the banning of Sakita and halal slaughter. We don't mention religion at all. We have a position where we want the banning of slaughter without stunning.
Right, but of course that is a fundamental
pain. With the Shechita method, there is no conclusive scientific evidence to show that those animals suffer pain. We believe that they are immediately rendered unconscious, and they are immediately rendered insensible to pain because we believe, with significant scientific evidence, that the shechita method incorporates an effective and irreversible stun.
But I presume the animal doesn't make a noise because it's had its throat.
Its brain is dead. Instantly, brain is dead.
But how can its brain be dead? Because surely it must take at least 5 seconds for the blood to run out of its brain.
Far less than that. The blood doesn't run out of the brain. This is like tipping a bucket of water upside down. It's not gently spilling it. The brain, the blood pressure between neck and brain is so high that when you sever the carotid arteries and jugular veins with one action, the blood drops out of the brain. It's split second before it falls unconscious.
The thing is, you're obviously talking about this from a religious perspective, but going back to the British Veterinary Association, I mean, they are purely interested in the welfare of animals, aren't they? Now,
well, clearly not, actually, if I may interrupt, because the European Food Standards Agency did a visit to the United Kingdom very recently, and it showed that the mechanical stunning methods of animals so approved by the British Veterinary Association, 4 out of 11 showed signs of life after the stunning. The stunning fails 4 out of 11 times. The failure rate, they said, for the captive bolt shot is over 6%, and that can be the equivalent of between 3 and 9 million cows, depending on the type of stunning. So I would think that if the British Veterinary Association was so concerned about animal welfare, they might actually address those issues rather than focus, bizarrely, on 20,000 cows that are slaughtered by the Jewish community for food in the United Kingdom.
Presumably, then, you feel Denmark has got it completely wrong, where they've banned halal and kosher slaughter, because, as their ministers have argued, animal rights are more important than religion.
Yes, that's exactly what I read. And the Minister of Agriculture believes that the rights of animals come before the rights of humans. Now, of course, religious freedoms cannot be unrestricted. But to deny Jewish and Muslim communities their rights with no supporting conclusive evidence shows something is wrong in Denmark. But I would like to believe that the Minister of Agriculture in Denmark is motivated only by his concern for animal welfare.
Ultimately, though, I mean, a piece of meat is a piece of meat is a piece of meat. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, would I, between a kosher chicken breast and a non-kosher chicken breast, or even a halal chicken breast. It all tastes like chicken.
Yes.
It's purely about the method of execution for that.
It incorporates an effective and irreversible stun.
But not instantly.
Oh, yes, it does, indeed. It does instantly, because what it does is it draws the blade across the brain, the blood drops out of the brain fast, instantly, rendering the animal unconscious.
But the British Veterinary Association has said that a large number of animals that are killed in this way will inhale their own blood, which makes them feel as if they're drowning before they die. I mean, that doesn't sound a very pleasant way of an animal meeting its maker.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely, it doesn't. And the language chosen by the British Veterinary Association is simply chosen to inflame. It's ill-informed. It is not motivated. It is motivated by other concerns. There is ample scientific evidence from leading scientists the world over to show that the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food is no less painful to animals than any of the other legal methods used in the United Kingdom today.
But is it exactly the same as halal?
There are differences between the Jewish method and the
physical differences.
Physical differences, yes. There are differences in the time it takes to be trained to be a slaughterman. There are many differences. I have to focus only on the Jewish method, not representing the Muslim communities.
The thing is, though, Shimon, if you kind of put yourself in the animal's kind of position, not a very nice position to be in. Mm-hmm. But if any of us were given the chance of either having our throat slit with a very sharp knife, but being conscious at the moment that it occurs, or being instantly shot with something through the head so that we are in effect brain dead, we don't know anything about it when the slitting of the throat occurs, then most of us, I'm sure, would opt to be brain dead before somebody sliced our throat. Why is it any different with an animal?
Well, first of all, the method that you're suggesting there, being shot in the skull, if I were to whack you over the head with a hammer, it would hurt you, and then you would fall unconscious. So there is no evidence to show that shooting the animal and cracking its brain, it does so painlessly. It will hurt the animal will bellow, and then it will fall unconscious. We don't do that. We think it's cruel. That's the first thing. The second thing is this really isn't what people feel. It can't be down to what people feel, because if you were to witness open heart surgery on TV, you would think that is bloody, awful, and painful, and you'd call for a ban because it's absolutely barbaric what those people are doing. Uninformed people can't make judgments just by looking at things. Watching an animal die is horrible. In whichever way you slaughter the animal, all those methods are horrible. It's not about what it looks like. It's about, is there sufficient scientific evidence to show that animals suffer pain?
But first...
There is ample scientific evidence from leading scientists the world over to show that the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food is no less painful to animals than any of the other legal methods used in the United Kingdom today.
That's Shimon Cohen. He's the voice of kosher slaughter in the UK, and he's told me Denmark has insulted millions around the world by banning halal and kosher meat. He argues kosher slaughter is painless and humane and should never be banned across the 3 counties. Halal and kosher meat is widely available across beds, hearts and bucks, but in Denmark, politicians argue animal rights are more important than religion, and so it's been taken off the shelves. So let's have a look at the law in this country. Well, European regulations require animals across the UK, including here in the 3 counties, to be stunned before they're slaughtered. But they grant exemptions on religious grounds. Under the Muslim halal and Jewish kosher systems, animals blessed with a prayer and then are conscious as their esophagus, or in simple terms, their throat, is cut with a knife. Mohammed sells halal meat in Luton.
About cruelty to animals, I'd say we got no choice, but we have to eat animals for our food. So to stun an animal is much worse than killing it by the knife, which is a sharp blade. It's much easier for the animal, less painful.
Well, the British Veterinary Association disagree. Their official position is that halal and kosher slaughter does cause more pain than stunning.
There are at least 3 welfare risks. One is the delay to unconsciousness with the ritual slaughter, and because of that delay it allows pain to be felt, and there is scientific evidence to support that. And aside from the pain, which was going to be my third point, is that animals slaughtered in this way also aspirate some of their own blood, and we know that that happens to a high percentage. So if you can imagine what it's like perhaps to have some water go down the wrong way, if you like. There are 2 parts of the respiratory tract which are very sensitive to that, the glottis and carina, which is where the trachea enters the lungs.
Well, when it's described like that, ritual slaughter sounds absolutely awful. Sean Wensley there from the BVA. We'll hear from their president very shortly, and I want to hear from you as well. Wherever you shop and wherever you eat across beds, hearts and bucks, there's a chance you'll eat meat that's had its throat cut without the animal being stunned. So this morning I want to hear your views. Would you like to see halal and kosher meat banned in the UK?
Have your say on today's big phone-in.
Call 08459 455 555.
That's 08459 455 555.
The JVS Show.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
So here's how you can get in touch. You can give me a call on 08459 455 555. You can text me with your view, 81333. Start your text with 3CR. Texts are charged at standard network rate. Email jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. You'll find me on Twitter as well if you want to tweet me, twitter.com/JVS Show. So yesterday I spoke to Shimon Cohen. He speaks on behalf of the kosher food industry in the UK. I began by asking him what kosher food actually is.
Kosher meat is the product of shechita. Shechita is the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals for food.
Right. And in what way does that differ from the standard meat production and slaughter that we have in this country?
Well, the standard meat production, animals undergo a mechanical stunning process prior to the slaughter methods. These stunning processes include being shot with a captive bolt into the brain to crack the skull prior to the animal actually being slaughtered. Most pigs in this country are gassed, rendered insensible by being suffocated by gas. Most chickens in this country are rendered insensible by being held upside down into a bath of water through which there is an electric current. Now, the Jewish community can't entertain any of those methods. Many of them do inflict unnecessary pain on animals, and therefore we have a method of rendering animals insensible to pain without mechanical stunning. Our shechita method incorporates an effective and irreversible stun. It's a humane method and results in the immediate and irreversible cessation of consciousness.
So what does it involve?
It really involves a rapid, uninterrupted severance of all the vital major organs and vessels at the neck of the animal, this with a very sharp blade. This produces an instant drop in blood pressure in the brain, rendering the animal immediately unconscious.
So, in effect, you're talking about slitting the animal's throat when they are not stunned before that actually occurs.
Well, it's important to understand that, first of all animals in this country have their throats slit prior to dying. That's legal whether you're Jewish, Muslim, or anybody. There is no other way of legally slaughtering an animal for food without doing that. The difference is not the method of slaughter. The difference is that many animals in the conventional world are mechanically stunned with all of those methods, gassing, electrocuting, shooting, or other methods.
So they're brain dead?
They are brain dead.
Yeah.
Now, our method does that.